Right, and we are back with another edition of Paisley Burger Betting, PB Betting College Football Podcast. I've lost track of what episode we are at, but I know this is the Week 13 recap here. A little delayed on this Monday start. Mr. Paisley, how was your weekend?
It was good. It was good. Had some things going on in the personal life, so I didn't get to watch a ton of football on Saturday, but did get to look at some highlights, watch some, look at some box scores. So ready for the recap today. It'll be a little shortened, recording here during the daytime. Usually it's a little bit darker in our room settings here, so a little bit different for the viewing crowd out there. But still great weekend coming into the season, like you said, big rivalry game. Nothing crazy on deck this week. But I think next week is going to be in store for some crazy madness, starting on that Black Friday with some really good games.
Yeah, huge congratulations to you, Mr. Paisley, on the engagement. If you're a listener out there, feel free to message our co-host Jared Paisley. Some big news there. So,
Thank you, sir.
more
Thank you, sir.
more important things, I guess, sometimes in college football, although that could be up for opinion, I guess, according to some.
College
But
football's still up there. Yeah, we had the TV on during the day. We had it rolling all day.
it was a good week though. 13-11. You went 13-11 overall. I went 8-8, which seems to be the story of the year, staying around 50%. Some positive on my card though, Jared. I did finally go 2-0 on the locks. I'm not sure that happened once yet this year to me. I think I've gone either 0-2 or 1-1 for most of my locks. So big shout out to Michigan State. Big shout out to Wisconsin getting the cover. Both teams almost actually won outright. Wisconsin did get the big win, of course, and I really like them. Just at home, they had such a bad year. I figured maybe they get one thing to go right, and not only did they cover, but they got the huge win over Illinois. And then Michigan State too, huge chance against Iowa. Iowa had to come back and rally in that game and knock them off, but they were probably the highlight of my card. Also got, I think we were both on Pittsburgh. They got the win outright, didn't need the points there. BYU, who is a team that I really wasn't sure if I would have faith in, but I held my breath and stuck with them. They got the win over Cincinnati, looked pretty good doing it. Oregon also, we thought maybe that number was a little bit high, but they came to play, completely took it to USC, got the win, got the cover. They're pretty much safely in the playoff race here. In the playoff at this point, assuming they avoid an upset this week. And then, just as many as I got right, also whiffed on, of course, Kentucky and Arkansas, like both of those SEC teams with over a touchdown. Both of those teams just, forgot to show up, didn't play. James Madison also thought, Sun Belt champions. I thought maybe they'd be playing for this playoff bid. They completely just looked terrible, almost lost that game outright to Washington State. And then also East Carolina losing, UCF. I mean, I kind of just threw that one on there. I thought Oklahoma State would just lose by 40 to everybody they play. I guess that's not entirely true. They almost pulled off the win outright over UCF, so that was a disappointment. And then also lost on Cal -3, which might get to later. We'll see, but not sure why I picked them. Disappointed in them, didn't show up. Stanford really took it to them, won that game handedly. Also, probably the best Stanford looked all season in that game. I'll just throw that out there. So, all in all, it was an okay week, but I'm at least proud of the 2-0 locks. Really needed that one out of 13 weeks. Finally got one.
Yeah, really good call on the locks. You were on Wisconsin. I don't know if I put that on my page. There was some, again, a lot of things going on this week with myself, but yeah, we did have Wisconsin on there as well. They're playing some decent ball. They're still fighting. Right when they announced Fickle was going to stay around, they really been playing good, so got to give it to them. That defense still is legit. Offense coming around a little bit, so huge win for them against Illinois. My card started Friday night with Hawaii. I really like that pick against UNLV, but UNLV just put it on them. Hawaii, very disappointing. They had it in the grass for a Mountain West run there and really fell apart here late in the season. I thought coming off the bye, they'd have a little bit better effort. The Oklahoma game, I did get to watch most of that one actually at noon. A little shaky early on, but then they really did pull away. I just thought that number was it was closed, I think, 4.5, 5. So everybody was on Missouri. I know Prabula played, which is something that nobody was expecting. Definitely a little limited in his movement and stuff, but Oklahoma did enough there. Still don't look like world beaters on offense. They still have a lot of problems on that side of the ball. We'll get to that game later. Virginia Tech got the cover, even with Miami's late score with a couple seconds left to make that final score look a little better than it is. And we'll hear about the Notre Dame Miami weekly discussion on the rankings probably this week again for the fourth week in a row. SMU was a nice winner there, -3, really took it to Louisville. They're playing some good ball and could really be in contention for an ACC title here. They're looking really good, playing some good ball here late in the season. Delaware, told them about, not going to pick them ever again. That was just a bad performance. Kansas also didn't get off the bus. Ball State, +20.5, barely scored a couple points. That was a terrible pick too. And then we were both on Kentucky, like you said. UNC was closer. If you had it 7 in real life, like I had 6.5, so I always talk about numbers matter. They did lose by 7. Just trying to touch on some of these other games we won't talk about. Talk about the Oregon game later. Notre Dame too. That was, I always get a little weird picking my own team, but that was a great pick. It was 21-0 a couple minutes into the game. An absolute no sweat. So got to thank them for their efforts there. Really didn't have to worry about them all day. Scoring the second most points in Notre Dame history, which is pretty crazy, putting up a 70 piece. So that was definitely a nice little statement for the committee. And yeah, Penn State, I don't know if you were on them too, but then Ryan, they're playing some good ball. They're still fighting, playing good. Nebraska really going down the drain, so got to give Penn State a lot of credit there. New Mexico took advantage of Air Force not having their quarterback, and they're kind of in the race now for a Mountain West. So we're going to have to take a look at them because they're playing some good ball, and their win total was around 2 or 3 wins this year, so they're really exceeding expectations there. And then North Texas, shot my cousin Nate when I saw him at the party on Saturday. It's easy to bet all year. We've been saying it's a team we've been promoting a lot on this podcast. Just bet them every week. They're crushing by 20, 30 points. They're on a tear right now. They love beating up on the small teams. Now let's see if they could play, a really good team in the American Championship. I think they still have one more game until they get there. And then, locks-wise with the Florida and BYU over. I just really thought Florida had a great spot there. They were playing well. Didn't show up at all. They got blown out by 20, so it was a good pick by you at Tennessee. In the over in the BYU game, I was just surprised BYU's defense actually stepped up a little bit and stopped Cincinnati's ground attack and their good quarterback at home. So we'll break that game down a little later. But BYU, like you said, playing some pretty good ball here late in the season. Besides that Texas Tech game, and we know how good Texas Tech is. So can BYU keep this up one more week? Then they probably put themselves in the Big 12 championship, another rematch against Texas Tech. So still a lot to play. But, yeah, that's been the story of my season case. A lot of 50-50s. The overall record definitely shows it, 144, 145, locks 14-14. So we are right on the even line, hopefully looking to bump that up here last week of the season and through bowl season.
Yeah, you said it. Overall, 234 wins, 248 losses, 11 push. So just under 50% together. And then the locks, you had 19 and 25. North Texas, that was a great pick. And it's interesting with them, there's going to be a real battle for that 5th playoff spot, or not 5th, but the group of 5 playoff spot, the 12th seed between really them. Tulane kind of was a little bit of a surprise being ranked ahead of everybody this past week. So we'll see if that holds in the rankings. I assume it will because they won. So I'm not sure if anything was done to differentiate them versus, James Madison versus North Texas versus some of these other teams, like you mentioned, even like San Diego State and some of these other conferences. So a couple things to watch, and there's definitely going to be a lot of controversy, I think, as we close out, especially if like the unforeseen happens and Michigan beats Ohio State next week, like all of a sudden, where do you put Michigan, in the top 12? Like where does Ohio State fall? SEC coming down to the wire here. So a lot of things. We only have 1 week to go. I can't believe we're already this late into it, pretty much, wrapped up, but still a lot of movement, a ton of teams still in the mix. And, between this rivalry week and then going into conference championship, there's probably still like 5 or 6 spots that have yet to be like solidified. Like I'd say over half the field. I think we have a good idea. But really there's a lot of craziness that could happen. And like you even mentioned just briefly with Miami and like Notre Dame, like if Miami doesn't win the ACC, it looks like they're out. And, where will they fall at, 11, 12, like if Notre Dame's 9, and a lot of that will also depend on if any team does win, like a BYU or like, Michigan or something that will steal a spot. Like how does that affect everybody? So a lot of still, even though we don't have a ton of games left, still a lot of things to figure out. I'd say we're, really far from having any clue, more so than last year. I think last year there were kind of like, a few teams that we still had to figure out in the seeding, but I still think there's like 6 teams on the bubble, and it's really starting with that group of 5, who's going to be in, who's going to be out. So a lot of craziness with just 1 week here of the regular season.
Yeah, 100%. So a lot of teams, so we love the 12-team playoff. And yeah, all the people that do like the projections, like, okay, tiebreaker scenario, like 3, 4 weeks ago, or when the first rankings come out, it's like, wait till this week. Like now we got 1 week left. Now you know exactly what teams need to get in, what they need to, their record looks like 11 games in. So now you can start doing your tiebreakers, see conference standings, all that stuff. Now you could really dig into it. For the people that do it, because there's just so much football left to play. But now it gets really exciting because now, yeah, like I said, 1 week left in the season, then we got conference championships and still a ton of spots. Going to be a ton of debating. There was already a lot of debating going back and forth online with all these teams. I think it's only going to heighten here in this week, so that's when it gets exciting.
Yeah, and we'll keep this one shorter, like we said, and rivalry week coming up. Just mentioned now we got the Ohio State, Michigan on deck, Alabama, Auburn, a ton of games. I mean, just down the slate that we're going to recap on Wednesday. So if you're listening for the first time or not very often, we do 2 podcasts a week. We do the recap episode, we do the preview midweek. We'll come around, I'm sure, and do something for the playoff on that Sunday, maybe a little bit of a recap, and then mix, talk about the playoff. So all coming up in the next couple weeks. Appreciate if you're listening, hit the subscribe button, follow us on Twitter, listen to us on Spotify, whatever. We do appreciate it. Also, I guess, Paisley, one of the biggest storylines, and we don't really have to talk a lot about it because we really don't know, but Ole Miss sitting there in the playoff. They're like 6 or 7 in the country. And the storyline is, of course, Lane Kiffin. It seems like he's out. I'm hearing rumors that, LSU and Florida and Auburn are getting prepared or have already offered some crazy deals. It sounds like Ole Miss's athletic director, wants to know very soon, which is fair to them. I mean, if he's moving on, they have to get their coaching search underway also. Sounds like it's supposed to be announced right after the Mississippi State game. Who knows if that will happen? But I can't, it's kind of crazy. I mean, if you're Ole Miss, you got to be kind of ticked off a little bit. You're in the heart of it. You're trying to still win a national championship. I mean, for a field this wide open, and you got all the rumors around Lane Kiffin. But I guess when you hire him, you kind of know that's what comes with it. So. But right now, I mean, he's got a feeling on top of the world. I mean, he can choose whatever job he wants. He can put any salary he wants. I mean, he's just running the storylines right now. But big kind of story that there's always a little things, at the end of seasons that as a little bit of non-exact football, storylines, and it's certainly going to affect Ole Miss. We'll see how they look this week. It is a rivalry game with the Egg Bowl, so anything could happen. But big storyline around him, and I'd say odds are he's out and he'll probably go to LSU or somewhere else. But it is interesting that the whole timeline of all this is right before the conference championship, right before the playoff, and Ole Miss is right there, still everything in front of them.
Yeah, that's he loves this attention. I think like he just loves the spotlight, loves hearing everybody talking about him online, on shows, and everything. So he's just soaking it all in. I think he's gone too. I would have to agree with you. My thing is if he wanted to sign the extension, there's been so many extensions and people staying at where they're at that got announced 2-3 weeks ago. He would have signed it by now and would have committed. I think now he's waiting until after the Egg Bowl, the whole ultimatum thing. It's just a little weird, a little crazy. I don't know if he'd make people wait and then be like, oh, yeah, I'm staying, unless he really just loves the drama and loves to drum it up and stuff like that. But it's going to be interesting because, I think he could announce and then obviously I think he would have to leave. I guess he could stay. I don't know what's going to happen, but the calendar is all screwed up now with the recruiting and you got to get in, you got to get your coaching staff and all that. I get it. But is he are you going to really leave if you have a chance to win a national title, quote unquote? You're going to be in the playoffs. You're going to have a good seed. Not a bye or anything, but you'll have a good chance. You got a solid team, not maybe top tier level, but anything could happen in the playoffs. You just need to get hot or have a good run, get the right matchups, and you could be in the national championship game. So that would be the craziest situation I think we've ever seen in the sport where you have a chance to win national title and the coach just leaves right at the end of it, right before you start your playoff run. So if that does happen, then what does a committee do? Because someone brought it up too, about Florida State losing their quarterback, now losing a head coach. Is that kind of the similar notion? This is some unprecedented territory we're going to be in. I don't know if they'll leave them out if they win the Mississippi State game, but Mississippi State, like you said, that game is a huge rivalry. They love playing it every year. They play it tight every year. So a lot of distractions now going on the Ole Miss side. So if they get knocked off, they fall back a lot. And then if Lane Kiffin leaves, it could be really, really messy. So this is a very stressful week for Ole Miss fans and everybody involved there.
Yeah, they have to win. I mean, that's step one right now. I mean, if they lose this game, they're really out of it. I mean, there's no way. I don't think. I mean, possibly a 2-loss, you could try to, with a calm and try to figure out exactly where to place them. Is it 10? Is it 11? Is it 14? But I mean, good point. I mean, if the committee set precedent saying, your team matters, players matter. Well, what does that mean for coaches? I mean, you'd think they matter. So we would see that. I mean, that would be unbelievable if that was a deciding factor. I think if they do win, they'll probably, they're safe regardless. And if they lose, they're probably out, is where I'd say. But honestly, anything could happen. We've seen, crazy things. But yeah, story to watch down there in Ole Miss. We'll see how that goes here for the next couple of weeks with them. All right, moving on. Just a few games. We got 6 games, and we'll touch on our winners and losers. We'll start here in the SEC. Oklahoma pays a good pick with them. If you told me they'd score 17 points, I'd say there's no chance they cover this game. But the defense showed up. A big surprise, like you said. Bo Prabula played. I don't think a lot of people saw that happening. I was actually at the Penn State game, turned on the TV, had this in the quad box, and I was like, "Is that Prabula? I thought he was out for the season." So supposedly he's back. It is true. They actually outgained Oklahoma this game. I was surprised to see in the box score 301, 276, kind of a snoozer, but Oklahoma did enough, up 14-3 at one point, end up taking care of business, winning the game 17-6. This was an important game for them. I mean, every game is important, but Missouri is no pushover. They needed the win. They the emotions were high, I think, after the Alabama win that a lot of people didn't see coming. And here they are. They get it done. They advance, and they're still looking good here heading into the final week with the win over Missouri 17-6.
Yeah, it was a weird game just overall. I think the final score reflected it. Had the total of 41, which is super low, and it actually played out to, I know we were kind of thinking about the over. I didn't get there in real life, but yeah, 23 total points in this one. Kind of a snoozer, like you said. Missouri was moving the ball. That's why I think the yards were definitely there, but just in the red zone, this has been happening all year with them. If you're a Missouri fan, their kicking game is not good, actually, like obviously. So they really have to like go for them, fourth down. Sometimes they don't want to, and then when they do kick it, they got one blocked. I think it was 3-0 at the time, and they either got one blocked or they missed it, and then the momentum just swung to Oklahoma on that play. So really from there, it took it. They could have maybe went up 10-0 if it went for it, got the touchdown. Instead, they were down 7-3, and then Oklahoma got rolling a little bit. But yeah, this defense is legit. Like we talked about, they really shut down the run game. And Ahmad Hardy only had 57 yards, which is something we kind of expected. They were just really low in the box all game. And then they forced Prabula to throw it 36 times, which is crazy for somebody who just came back. I don't know how he came back. Like I thought his ankle was like completely shattered and definitely out the rest of the season. So it was really impressive that he came back in this spot, but you could tell he definitely was not 100%. So I know people were betting him and the line was going way down, but it's like the John Mateer factor when he came back against Texas. Like I know these are the big names and your quarterback's coming back, but how healthy is he and how much better is he than the backup? And I know that true freshman Zollers or whatever his name was not playing good. And he, doesn't have a lot of pop. But, Prabula tried his best, and he definitely gave them enough in the throwing game to get them there. But then they really missed his legs down in the red zone and really missed his scrambling ability to that level that they really rely on. And it really, it's a great extra piece you could have in the red zone. Your quarterback could run it like that. So they were just a little lost once they got down there. And Oklahoma did enough. They had a couple big explosive plays. But besides that, the offense definitely does have some worries. I like this team. Picked them against Alabama, picked them this week. But I don't know, Case. Once they go up against some good competition, if they make the playoffs, it's really going to be matchup dependent. But I don't know if I see this offense and John Mateer, really taking them up a notch. They're still not running the ball great. Mateer's not known for his, amazing downfield throwing and stuff. He was at Wazoo, but this year it's just a little different with the hand injury. So I like Oklahoma for the short term here, but it's going to be very matchup dependent in the playoffs, and I could see them just not really. I'm not really believing fully in this team on the offensive side, especially in Oklahoma.
Yeah, and their season's certainly not done. They have LSU this Saturday, and regardless of how bad LSU's season is, we've seen teams sometimes with enough talent, they have the guys, and if they could get it together 1 week, I'm sure those guys are going to be wanting to upset Oklahoma and play spoiler, even though that their season's over. So we'll watch that, and yeah, good point. I'm not sure how all in I am in Oklahoma. I mean, there's just so many teams that I just don't know if I fully believe in. I think like we've had a lot of good teams, but we just don't know how many are great, how many are elite. And when I say that, I'm really comparing it to Ohio State. I mean, we talked a little bit about before the podcast, but it's really just like, could I see Oklahoma beating them? And to be honest, I just don't see that. Like, I don't even see that game really being very close. And I don't know. We'll see. I think a lot of these top teams are good. They're really good at some areas, but they always have like one or two flaws. And like you said, it will be matchup dependent. If Oklahoma gets through LSU, I think, they'll be in a good spot. They'll be in the playoff. I don't know if they probably won't be able to host a game. Maybe they'll probably be right on the bubble there between hosting and playing on the road, but definitely can't be snoozing next week. They escaped Missouri. Offense didn't look great, but thankfully the defense was able to do enough to shut them down and hold on and win.
Yeah, and that LSU game, like you said, LSU, they just played last week, 13-10. They have a great defense. Their offense, so it's going to be a very similar game like this. And, in these lower possession, lower scoring, if one mistake, one slip up, it could be 13-10, and now you're down, losing the game. So, yeah, definitely you need to bring their A game next week because it's going to be a very similar test against LSU.
Also moving on here, ACC, this was a huge win here for SMU. Really kind of starting to come play their best football at the right time of the season. We didn't really believe in them fully. At least I didn't for most of the season, really the offseason. We thought they'd have a little bit of a down year, but things are starting to click. I mean, they haven't had the hardest schedule in the world by any means, but they're doing what they need to do. They're 6-1 in the ACC for how wide open it is. They are right there, dismantling Louisville here 38-6, and a Louisville team that's pretty decent. Like, this isn't just a pushover team. This is at one point was in the driver's seat really in the ACC, and then things kind of falling off the rails here late. But 485 total yards to 228. Dominated on third down, 9 for 13. I mean, if you're 9 for 13, it's really hard to lose a game. So they looked really good, playing their best football at the right time. Not a lot of people saw this coming either. I mean, I think you were on SMU, which was a good pick, but this spread was only like 2 or 3 points. I took Louisville late. I mean, I was kind of undecided. I don't think I had it on the page, but I was leaning Louisville, but SMU really just kind of shut everybody up, got the win, and they're right there. Even though this is a team that wasn't ranked here coming into this week, they're 6-1 in the ACC. You got to assume if they win out, they'll be in the playoff here, squeezing in as the 12. So I have to see all those tiebreakers work out, but SMU really impressed, dominating win, 38-6 over Louisville.
Yeah, just pure dominance. Said spread was down a little bit on case for both sides, and SMU just right out of the gates took it to them and didn't put the foot off the gas the entire game. Miller Moss did not play in this one. This was something that was kind of in the weeds. I don't know if that was just a benching or if it was an injury, but he was not playing great all season. Definitely had a rough game against Clemson that Friday night last week, and they went with a backup, a freshman. He could run around a little bit more, and I think they kind of liked him more, but he didn't really have a great game throwing the football or running. Not a lot of people with Louisville did that game. So a lot of credit to SMU. Like you said, playing their best football at this time is very important. Looks better in the committee's eyes and everything. And yeah, I think just look at their schedule. They have Cal. They have to go to Cal next week. So after they looked a little shaky against Stanford, hopefully they could get that win. And then, yeah, they should find themselves in the SEC championship. We don't know all the tiebreakers or everything on this podcast, but I think if they do win, I think they'll be in the SEC championship. And then, right, if they win it, look at SMU could go back-to-back playoff appearances, which would be something that would be really cool for that program. And not a lot of people were expecting a lot of great things this year from SMU.
Yeah, and then there's a 3-way tie right now. It's 6-1, 6-1, and 6-1 between Virginia, Pitt, and SMU. So obviously, if we'll have to see how that plays out. Pitt, I guess, plays Miami, of course. We're going to get to that game later in the week. Huge game. Been calling Pitt all year. They're going to win. Anyway, if they don't win, which won't happen, but let's say they didn't, SMU certainly will be there with a game with Virginia lined up. So we'll see how all those tiebreakers shake out. But if you're SMU, if you get in this playoff, that'd be a huge win. I mean, huge win on the season. I don't think anybody really saw that. And I'm sure a little bit, of course, like everything, is based on who you play, and they might get the chips to fall their way a little bit here with their schedule. And the ACC champion might be the 5th best team in the SEC, if that. But regardless, it's how we have the current structure, so we gotta live with it for now. But nonetheless, you have to be pretty happy if you're SMU.
Yeah, and back on that Miami pick, we might have been the first podcast to give that pick out 4 months ago. So that pick has been it's been pending in the account for a while. So we finally get to talk about that one coming up this week. It's going to be fun. But yeah, still a lot to play for in the ACC coming down to the wire here.
Moving on to the Big Ten, probably pretty much solidified themselves in the playoff here. The Oregon Ducks getting it done against USC last week, 42-27. USC scored a lot of points. We thought we might have a game like this, but really Oregon kind of just took it to them. Never really felt endangered of losing this game. There was some ups and downs, but they did enough. They cover the spread. And they get the win. And at this point, I forget who Oregon has. I guess next week. I think it's Washington. Yeah, they play
Washington
Washington.
at
So
Washington, yeah.
got to get through that. Not an easy win by any means, but they're right there. If they win that game, I'm sure they'll be in. They'll be out of the Big Ten championship, unless we'll get to it also. But if Michigan really throws an upset at Ohio State, that would really shake up the Big Ten. But if you're Oregon, you got to be pretty happy. You did what you need to do. You beat Penn State earlier in the season. You only lose to Indiana, even though they didn't look great at times. Weird team to gauge all year, like we were saying with the game against Wisconsin and Iowa, just in unforeseen weather circumstances. But they win this game. They look good doing it. They knock USC now completely out, and Oregon, they got to put on cruise control. They got to do what they need to do. They got to win, but hopefully, I think they should be here in good shape this final week.
Yeah, this was definitely an impressive performance from Oregon. USC, again, just not living up to the road expectations. They're getting these big spreads. Kind of played out like the Notre Dame game that we mentioned earlier, with a little more margin here, with Oregon putting up 42. With the clear conditions, they finally got a game with no rain or crazy winds, so I think they were happy. And the offense looked good. They were a good running team, something that's underrated with this team. They could really run the football. And then Dante Moore just has to do enough in the passing game. Their defense is the only worry going into maybe playoff contention, or now that we're looking at big picture, or even next week against Washington. I've been seeing a lot of people actually liking Washington in that game already. In that spot, it's a tough place to play. So, like you said, still a lot to play for. They're definitely not 100% in. But their defense does give up a little bit to be desired in the front end, especially on the D line. They have good secondary play. I think they lead the country in passing defense with some metrics. But yeah, I really just trust in this offense, this run game. I like Dan Lanning as a coach. I think he's got these guys going in the right direction. They're just so prepared, ready to go every single week in and week out, and kind of peaking at the right time now. This is 2 or 3 good offensive performances back to back to back. Definitely didn't have an easy road, and now you got to go on the road to Washington to close it out. So good for Oregon there. And on the flip side with USC, just a little disappointing. We kind of expected this. This is why the line was a little higher, but we thought, maybe they could break through. I saw something today earlier during the day. Lincoln Riley 0-5 against top 10 teams at USC. So maybe starting on the James Franklin line there. Everybody loves to throw those stats out, which I think it's kind of like, it's top matchup anyway. So I don't know if you're going to win regardless, but you're expecting USC to be there. It's his 4th year. They're supposed to be rising, getting up to the top, and had some big wins, quote unquote, against Michigan at home, Nebraska on the road, but the quarterback got injured. We don't really trust Michigan that much this year. So, I think they were good wins, but not those top tier wins that they were looking when they really stepped up in class. It really kind of just didn't even look close in some of these games, even though their offense put up enough points to make it look closer. If you watch the game, you just felt like this game was close to a 3 or 4 touchdown victory, is what it felt like. So definitely disappointing for USC. It's a good program. We want them to get back on track because it's a big time name and it'd be great for the sport, but they're just not breaking through that ceiling yet. And maybe Lincoln Riley's run his course already there. So that's going to be another team and thing to be interesting. But the expectations are always high at USC, but I feel like they're just always come up a little short, and we gave them enough time now. We should be seeing a little more results here with USC.
Yeah, and that's actually an interesting thing because Lincoln Riley, there's some rumors that, he may not be at USC next year. And
Yeah.
if that means, getting pouched by another team, take over, or, if they have a mutual parting of ways, I mean, who knows? I don't think his seat is hot by any means yet, but, Lincoln Riley, he kind of left Oklahoma just suddenly. I could see a similar, situation if, LSU or Auburn calls, or, whatever school Lane Kiffin doesn't want to coach next year. Maybe he would be on that short list. I don't know. I mean, what has he really won yet? I mean, but at the same time, he's still if he's feeling some hot water at USC and he wants to change of pace, I think he's probably on a list of at least 5 to 10 names for some of these schools. So keep an eye out on that. I think it's more likely he returns next year. I think they'll give it one more year, maybe I mean, they got a great class coming in. We don't talk about recruiting much on this
Yeah.
podcast, but they have a really good class coming in next year. And, it is trending up. They weren't really supposed to quite be a playoff team yet. Although, when you have these opportunities, of course, the narrative is you gotta win these games. So they're right there. I still think they're a step behind, but we'll keep them monitoring though for Lincoln Riley to see what he does as well next season.
Yeah, the Lincoln Riley hype, I just don't get. Like, I don't know. I think we're seeing him in Oklahoma at the highest level. He's had how many Heisman quarterbacks, and they couldn't even compete in the playoffs or get close. Like, and it's hard to get to that next level or win championships. I'm not saying it's easy, but I don't know. I get the buzz. I get he's a good offensive play caller, but I feel like he's just a good play caller. You got to be a culture setter. You got to be a CEO. You got to do a lot more things as the head coach, and you have all the resources at USC. Like, they have the money, they have the talent, they have the recruiting. So it's like, what's the issue? And I don't know if he goes somewhere else. Like, I feel like USC might be the best he could get. It's like, so you don't have to compete really with anybody in California there. You have it all to yourself. And, I just don't think he's deserving of that discussion as like the top 5 or top 3 like he was maybe back in the day. So I just don't see it. But, he still has time to fix it around. It does take a while to build some of these programs all the way up.
Yeah. Moving on, SEC, Arkansas at Texas, a game that we're both, or I was on Arkansas on this one with 8.5. Haven't won a game since September, 0-7 in conference. I didn't really expect them to win this game. They played a lot of teams really tough. They, of course, almost knocked off A&M, just a month ago. Ton of yards in this game, over 1,000 combined yards. 512 yards of total offense for Arkansas. So like they're right there. Like, they are not getting blown out. They're not getting pushed over in these games. Texas just outscored them late. I mean, a ton of points. I think Texas was up like 38-20 here midway through the third. And then, there was just, constant scores. I don't know how many punts were in this game, but couldn't have been many. Texas did what they needed to do. They're kind of out of the playoffs right now, of course, from their recent losses, but like, this is going to be a team to watch. What do you do now if they go beat Texas A&M next week? Like, they're not going to be ahead of A&M, obviously, but will Texas do enough to jump from like 17-12, 17-10, or are they going to go like 17-15 or 14, and they're not really going to, credit that much because of those 3 losses? So kind of just things to watch. Texas did what they need to do, though. I don't know what happened to their defense, but they scored 50 points. They get the win. They move on, and then that's kind of all they needed to do. Arkansas, you got a little bit disappointment. I don't think we really thought they'd win this game, but they're so close in so many of these SEC games. I thought maybe they'd pick off one of them, maybe catch Texas sleeping after maybe a little bit of a disappointment, a couple of weeks kind of out of the playoff now. But they showed up, they played well, they scored a lot of points, just kind of fell short of the Texas high-powered offense. I guess we could call it that now, but 52-37 Texas wins. We'll see if it's enough next week. Probably no, but things at least stay interesting with them getting this win here against Arkansas.
Yeah, that's my first question when I saw this final score was, what happened to Texas defense? I thought this was supposed to be one of the best defense in the country, and just slowly, week after week, if they go up against a good offense, it's like they're paper tigers. And guess what, Case? They got Texas A&M on deck, which is one of the best offenses in the country next week. So I would not feel comfortable in that game. I actually did place a bet already on Texas A&M as one of the only ones. I just took a quick look at the schedule, didn't do a deep dive next week. But I thought it's around a pick 'em. I'm like, I'll gladly take them -115, -120. I think Texas A&M lays it on them. So I think Texas has shown they could really beat up on the small teams. That's when Arch feels comfortable. That's when they could get their playbook opened up, start getting his bag a little bit. But now when they step up in competition, like last week against Georgia, on the road, tough spot, Kirby Smart, they couldn't even move the football past midfield. So if you're a Texas fan, this has to be frustrating because you're like, where at least was a tenth of this against Georgia? So complete night and day, just very inconsistent from the Texas team. Got to give them flowers. Like you said, putting up 52 on anybody is very impressive, and Arch definitely looked a lot better. But this Arkansas defense we know is not the best, and it's had a ton of holes all year. But Texas has been better at home, I will say, too, than on the road. But I just think when they step up in class, it's just not even close. So let's see, like you said, what the committee does with them in the rankings. But I don't think after that Georgia performance, that's still in my head. I know this was a nice victory for them against Arkansas, but you did give up 512 yards to Arkansas. And I didn't know what happened in the game. I didn't look up that specifically, but Taylor Green did go out in the game. Not sure if that was a benching or an injury, and they had the backup quarterback in there for Arkansas. So 2 quarterbacks put up all those yards on Texas. So I'm not too confident if I would be holding a Texas ticket next week that we're going to be shutting down Marcel Reed and those receivers on the outside. So I think this could be in the works for another shootout potentially. I think back and forth if this offense could play. I don't really love Texas A&M's defense, but I do. This defense from Texas, what happened, man? What happened to them? But they still have a chance, like you said. Big game next week at home. Disappointing one last year when they went to College Station and lost and couldn't really move the football then. Let's see if they can move the football and score a couple points, but I don't know how many stops they're going to get against that Texas A&M offense.
Yeah, that's very true, and it's a rivalry game. Anything could happen, and that's what is going to make it exciting. And I think A&M normally I'd say no question. A&M should be able to push them over, score at will, do what they want. But then you look at that first half against South Carolina, and it's like,
Sure.
what was that team like?
Sure.
Is there any chance like that team comes out? I don't think. I mean, we know. I think both these teams will show up. I think it's a rivalry game, so even if you get the best Texas version next week, I think we're also going to get the best A&M version or close to it. I mean, I don't expect, anything unforeseen or a blowout or anything like that to happen. If it does, I think I'd lean, A&M for sure being able to pull away. But yeah, good point. I don't know. By giving up that many yards and points to Arkansas, I would be very, very concerned next week going up against Marcel Reed and those loaded wide receivers if you're Texas.
Yeah, that's a lot of these teams. We could go through all 130 teams and how inconsistent each team is.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to find these consistent teams because it is like one week, like you said, Texas A&M down against South Carolina, then looks good, like some of the best teams in the country. Next week, Texas, 1 week to the next. Like it's not even like first half of the season, second half of the season. This is week to week. So that's what makes betting this year so difficult because it's just you don't know what team you're getting each week and then until the game starts. So it's just been frustrating overall from a betting perspective too.
Moving on, ACC, we were both on Pittsburgh on this one. Of course, Pittsburgh had the bad loss to Notre Dame a week ago, but they did what they need to do according to Pat Narduzzi. Everything's going as planned in the ACC. They're 6-1. They get a big win over Georgia Tech, 42-28, 412 total yards. Got 2 takeaways on this one. Looked pretty good. They did what they need to do. They did it in a dominating fashion. I think they were up 28-0 at this point. Georgia Tech, was able to get their offense going late. But right now, Pittsburgh is sitting right there on the verge of clinching themselves a ticket here for the ACC championship game. Like we just talked about, the tiebreakers are going to be right there. If they knock off Miami, you'll have an opportunity here in 2 weeks. But if you're Georgia Tech, you got to be a little bit disappointed. Georgia Tech team that coming into the season we thought was a dark horse in the ACC. And then if you tell us that, Miami would drop a couple, Clemson would be non-existent, you'd be saying, well, Georgia Tech should be right there, Haynes King for the conference to take. And, they just slip up here late. Last few weeks haven't been playing their best football. You let this one go. You don't look good in this one. And your season at this point is pretty much wrapped up. The ACC is certainly not a multiple bid team here in the playoffs. So got to be disappointment if you're Georgia Tech, but the complete reverse of that is Pittsburgh has played themselves in a really good opportunity to surprise some people, which I will say was my surprise team in the ACC. So may have completely missed on a lot of the others around the country that we might get to, but got this one right. At least I think so. And when they beat Miami next week, I'll really claim victory. But huge win for them. Disappointment for Georgia Tech, 42-28 Pitt right there in the ACC.
Yeah, Pat Narduzzi was right. He just was, I guess, not preparing for Notre Dame and just focusing on these games because they showed it. So he had a lot of pressure there. They came out and did it. Jumped out 28-0 early in the second quarter. So really got off to a fast start and then kind of just rode that to the end. But what a difference a week makes again. You're going up against the Notre Dame defense that is playing a lot better versus Georgia Tech, which this might be the worst defense in college football. Like they are just so bad. And we previewed this game and we kind of nailed it on the head. And I just remember watching that North Carolina State game. And we just saw North Carolina State on Friday night struggle against Florida State to move the ball at home. And they were going up and down the field against Georgia Tech like it was a 7-on-7 drill. So like flag football almost. So I was just from that game on, I was like, I just don't trust this defense at all. Love Haynes King. Love what he's doing. Love the coaching staff there. But again, like you said, you got to question some of the stuff they're doing because just really got into a hole here in this game. Battled back a little bit, but it really wasn't even close throughout the entire contest. Cut it to 7 late in the fourth quarter, but by that time, Pitt did enough. So if Pitt has the right matchup, right thing, we'll see with Miami this week. It's definitely going to be a similar-ish to Notre Dame. We'll see if they could give them the same problems that Notre Dame did. But this was just a great matchup for Pitt coming off that loss. A lot better. Their offense could breathe a little bit and not get hit 2 seconds after they snap the ball. So really depends matchup week to week here, as we know a lot about these teams. And yeah, very disappointing for Georgia Tech, but Pitt, huge win for that program. We were kind of dogging them a little bit after that Notre Dame game, and deservedly so. And now they have the chance to rewrite some of the stuff here. And if they could get another big win against Miami, that would really turn around a lot of the perspective of Pitt, the season they had and everything. And even if they lose, it's still a pretty good season that they had. But it's a big, big game. This was the first step of 2 that Pat Narduzzi talked about, that this is all they cared about. So let's see, can he do it again? I know we will both be on him on this podcast. We are a Pitt Panthers podcast this week, so it'll be a fun one. That's going to be one of the games I'm really, really excited to see next week, and good for Pitt getting the big win here.
And if you're just tuning in, we are by no means Pittsburgh fans, at least for sure not me, but I am an anti-Miami fan, if that's a thing. I was selling Miami week 1 when everybody thought, even when they were number 2 in the country, everybody's just writing them in, shooting them in. Oh, they're playing the best football ever.
Yep.
And then they, go lay an egg during the week against Louisville, and the rest, is history. So also pro Pitt this week, but also anti-Miami.
That Louisville loss does not look good. The week by week, Louisville's fallen off the map, and they got severely outplayed. Like they won by 14 or 10 plus, I think, in that game. So yeah, Miami fans, you want to keep complaining about their resumes, this or that. That Louisville loss is not going to look good at the end of the year.
Moving on to the Big 12 here, a team that, was undefeated a few times in situations like this. I think they started to this season 8 or 9-0, and then, of course, got blown out to Texas Tech. But BYU, again, a big win over Cincinnati. This was a tough game for them. I think a lot of people thought these were evenly matched teams. A lot of people were picking Cincinnati. BYU did it. They did what they needed to do. They're 10-1 now overall, 7-1 in conference. And they look good doing it, getting the win over Cincinnati. They're right here in the driver's seat. Of course, we still got a week to go, but they have UCF next week, so definitely, winnable game. You drop that, you're probably out of it. You don't deserve to be in it. But I feel like everybody in the country is kind of rooting against BYU. They don't want to see them in. Would be funny if they do get in. I don't know. I would imagine they have to win that Texas Tech game. I don't think they could get in at large. I just don't think there's enough spots. I think even if they're 11-1, I don't think that matters. I think they need to win the Big 12. I think it's also a one bid conference for at least how it's all shaking up. But nonetheless, they did what they needed to do. I actually picked them for once, which I don't do often. So big shout out to BYU. They get the win. Cincinnati on the inverse, their season kind of fell apart. They were looking good at one point, top of the Big 12, and things just got tough late. A little bit disappointed here in the last few weeks, but it was a good game, must win for BYU. I think this game was more about them. They get over hurdle 1. They gotta win their next 2. But nonetheless, shout out to the Cougars.
Yeah, gotta give them credit. Went on the road, won a tough game. Played okay, like you said, it's just there's not appealing. They're just not you don't watch them play and you're like, oh, this is a top tier team, kind of just skating by, doing enough what it takes just to win these games. Had a great day on the ground, 265. We know that LJ Martin is one of the top backs in the country. He's so elite. You mix that with Bear Bachmeier's running ability. It's a dangerous running attack. But in the passing game, that's where they struggle a lot. Bachmeier only had 127 yards passing, and the leading receiver was LJ Martin, so they're running back. So that's where they get in trouble when they play at Texas Tech, or they play Utah, who has a better defense, but we're not sure what happened to their defense in that absolute shootout against Kansas State this week, so maybe that wasn't even a great defense too. But when they step up in Class BYU, that's where they struggle because they can't throw the ball. You can't just rely on grounded and pounded and out-physicaling the other team, so they are kind of a little one-dimensional. Then the defense is good, not great, or I don't even know if it's good. They could stop the run. We know that. But again, a little one-dimensional. They can't stop the pass. They've had trouble in the past situation, their past games where they struggled stopping the pass. Brendan Sorsby, this game, 300 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, did have an interception. So, again, it's going to be very matchup dependent if they get to those playoff rankings. Texas Tech is just a really good all-around team. They could beat you in many spots, and that's where they struggle. So, BYU, just a frustrating team overall because they're good enough, but are they a top 12 team or can they really put a scare into somebody? I don't think so. Just very one-dimensional. But the stuff they do well, they do very well, and they're coached very well. very disciplined team, good special teams. Like they're solid. They're a solid team. But I think it's going to be important too if they ultimately get to the Big 12 championship, how they look in that game. If it's another blowout and they score 6 points or 10 points or don't look, even remotely close to Texas Tech, even though that final score was a little bit close, I think it was like 26-7. I think that'll be enough for them to be like, oh, no, not going to compete. See, like, this is why. But if they could play a close game, maybe lose by 3 or maybe score a little bit more points and look a little better, then maybe I could see it depending on what other teams are still, like you said, 6 or 7 bubble teams. So it's going to really depend there. But yeah, like you said, I don't know if that resume is going to hold up if they get blown out twice when they step up into competition. And what do you do in the playoffs? You step up in competition. So I don't know if the committee will really like to see that or really, put a team back in there that they just saw get blown out twice by a top 10 team.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that will depend on what happens this week too, with other teams. If how they look, where does BYU fall? And by the way, if BYU does fail to get in here at 11-1, like you got to treat Texas Tech game like a playoff game. Like I don't want to hear it if they lose close to Texas Tech and then they're out and everybody's like, oh well, what about this 2-loss, Alabama and 2-loss, whatever, Miami. I don't think they'll be in, but let's just say, and then Notre Dame and all these teams have 2 losses, and it's like, yeah, well, you have your opportunity. You're in a weaker conference. You have a chance to play Texas Tech. You're getting literally a rematch, something that rarely happens. Like you have a second chance. So if you lose the game, like we're not giving out, participation trophies. We know conferences aren't all treated or all created equal, So I really don't want to hear that unless it was something so blatantly. Like part of the beauty of the 12-team playoff, and maybe it won't be true when Penn State's on the bubble, but if you're not on, like if you're 14 and you're arguing you should be 12 or something, it's like, give me a break. Like you're lucky you even have an opportunity to play for the national championship. Right. BCS era wouldn't even be, you wouldn't even be batting an eye. You wouldn't even make a New Year's Six bowl semifinal, unless you're 4th or 5th, like you wouldn't be in the conversation. Like next year or whenever, it's going to be moving to 16. So it's like, if you're sitting between like, I don't even know, like let's say 10 to like 15 or something like that, it's like, and the chips don't fall your way, like that's just too bad, is my opinion. Like there's other data points. We know it's not perfect. You're clearly not number 3 or 4. So if you're falling out, that's really just unfortunate.
Yeah, no, I think, even these small sample size, the 11 or 12 seed isn't running the table every year. So you're right. It's usually the top 4 or 5 seeds that are playing. So yeah, you're just kind of playing just for a first round exit at that point, pretty much. And I think that's what BYU do. And I think one thing that's not going to be talked about a ton, or maybe it will be once we get into it, but the ACC and Big 12 is not good at all. Like, so I know the records are the same, or it's like, okay, like, yeah, like you said, them and Alabama would have probably, let's say, similar profiles. That's not even close to the same competition Alabama's playing every week. Like you take out Texas Tech, BYU, Utah, just look at the standings. Look at think of these other teams and how bad they are. Arizona State, Houston, Arizona, Cincinnati, Iowa State, Kansas State, TCU, Baylor, Kansas, UCF, West Virginia, Colorado, Oklahoma State. Like that is bottom like teams. And it's like, that's what you're playing every week. And that's why you got to 10 wins. So it's all for debate. Like you said, it's not a perfect system, but yeah, I hate when they just do the records or like, oh, they're 10-2 and they're 10-2. Like, no, let's dig into the record a little more and how hard it was to get to that 10-2 or how easy it was to get to that 10-2. So I'm kind of with you. I think if BYU loses in Big 12 championship, I think they should be out, even though they have the good record. But it's just look at these conferences, and the ACC and Big 12 are very, very, very weak.
Yeah, 100%. They're lucky, honestly, to just get their champion in for sure. Like, like Pitt, like for example, like if they win the ACC, right, like SMU, like these teams are very lucky. 3-4 losses, like they're gonna have a team. So
it's almost like a group of 5-ish. Like just be lucky you have one team. Like you said, don't be trying to get 2 or 3 teams. You're not even gonna be able to compete with some of these other teams.
Moving on to the segment that everybody waits for all week, of course, the winners and losers of week 13. It was an up and down week, but I think we got a couple decent ones. Paisley, who is your winner of week 13?
Yes, my winner, week 13, going to shout out somebody that we were dragging through the mud after that Utah game that he got thrown into the fire here, and that is one Jeff Sims of Arizona State. This was a game that kind of went under the radar, obviously, but Arizona State still, I think, has a chance to make the Big 12 championship if there's some crazy stuff going on, because I think they only have 2 losses because they've been playing some decent football. And he only went 11 for 24, 206 yards, 2 touchdowns. They ran the ball really well against Colorado in their 42-17 victory in Boulder. We know Colorado's kind of dead, but got to give shout out to Jeff Sims because he was kind of a journeyman here. I think he's in his 6th or 7th season, kind of getting tossed around. And I just thought right when he got inserted here for Sam Levitt, it was going to be 6 straight losses to end the year, but they've actually looked pretty serviceable and pretty good, winning by some margin in some of these games in the bad Big 12 that I just mentioned. But got to give Jeff Sims some credit here, going out one last swan song. I think he's out of eligibility, I would think, at this point. He's been playing since we were in college, I feel like, Case. So hopefully he should be done soon. But wanted to give a shout out to Jeff Sims leading this Arizona State team. And I'm telling you, if there's some crazy tiebreakers, I still think they can get into the Big 12 championship game, which would be awesome.
Yeah. That would be cool. And that's also the beautiful part about the winners and losers of the week here on this podcast is you always have the opportunity to redeem yourself. We're always watching. We don't miss a play. We got scouts here at every game. So very very good winner of the week. Didn't think Jeff Sims would ever be on the card, but here he is, winner of the week, Mr. Paisley. Paisley, I'm gonna go the Stanford Cardinal and Andrew Luck, and really everybody involved up there in Stanford getting the win. They won what they called the big game, the rivalry with Cal. They got the Stanford Axe back. They look good doing it. And I'm not sure if you saw the highlight, that staring contest.
I did see that. Yeah, I did see that.
So that was just something to see for something that happens every year. It kind of drowns out in rivalry week, leading up to it, all these other big games, Alabama, Auburn, Michigan, Ohio State. Well, let's not forget about Stanford and Cal and the big game. So big shout out. That interview too was cool with Andrew Luck, and interviewed on the sideline. And then there was a fumble and live action. And he was like, oh, hold on. And, so it's got to be a positive night for a season that really didn't go your way for Stanford. I think Luck's doing what he could. We'll see if it all plays out. I think they're probably on the rise. It's just taking a little bit to take off there, but a big rivalry win. I was wrong. I was on Cal. So big shout out to Stanford, my winner of the week.
If I'm not mistaken, Case, I think you might have had them as your loser of the week a couple weeks ago. So that might be the first in show history where they were a loser and now redeem themselves in the same season. So they need to get a plaque or something in the Stanford facility for that. My loser, or now we're going to loser of the week. My loser of the week, I'm going to go Florida State. I'm going to go Friday night. Got to watch that game on the road against an NC State team that's, struggling, not that great. What's happened to this Florida State program? Like, this is something, again, you kind of lose a bunch of games like Clemson. The ACC is just not really something to talk about all the time, but this program has fallen off again. We thought maybe they'd bounce back after that Alabama victory week 1, which is still crazy to think about. Tommy Castellanos, I saw some things. He was out partying the night before the Clemson game. I saw like the Friday night, like 2 a.m. And then I did bet on Florida State, and then they got crushed. And now I will never be able to bet him again and think in the light of him the same way. So I just think it's a joke of a program. I think they're really floundering. They can't really fire Norvell and his staff because I think they have to fire all of them together, and it'd be like even more of a buyout than some of these huge buyouts. So Florida State's an interesting program. They're kind of just stuck. They keep trying to do this transfer portal thing. It's not working. If you want to go recruiting, it's going to take a couple of years. So I just feel bad for those fans and that fan base because that was a very historic program, really good. And to see them go from undefeated, getting left out of the playoff, to now where they're at now, I think they're just at 500 or like a game below in the terrible ACC. Like this team should be dominating and should be at the top of the standings. So watching that game, that was hard to watch. They had like 3 fumbles in a row. They punted it. Did you see the punt where it got off the guy's helmet and went like 40 yards backwards, and then the punter recovered it from NC State? I've never seen that happen before, where a guy punted it, went 30 yards the other direction, punter recovers it. It was just laughable. Like, they went from a really great program to now a laughing stock. Like, I was actually chuckling during that game. It was that bad. So Florida State, the Seminoles, and that fan base and everybody involved, my loser of the week.
Yeah, it really just seems like it's been downhill since that getting left out of the playoff a couple of years ago. It seems like they've had some positives, but overall they've just lost a ton of games. I mean, they I don't know if they won a conference game last year, and then to respond of how they played this year. So massive disappointment, and for how bad they were against North Carolina State, for them to announce Norvell was coming back, just same week. It's just ludicrous to me. So loser of the week for sure. Might be loser of the half decade, honestly. So Florida State. My loser, to end it here on a negative note, I'm going to go the Illinois Fighting Illini have to be the loser of the week. Of course, the inverse is good win by Wisconsin, but this isn't just about this week. By the way, they got blown out by Wisconsin. They didn't just lose. They got blown out 27-10. Season just wasn't what they thought it could be. Illinois had pretty high expectations coming in. They were like preseason number 9 in the AP poll. I'm going to take a half win here on the Big Ten. I think I said Indiana and Illinois would both be disappointments. So certainly not the case in Indiana, but Illinois is doing all the work for me. Kind of started with that blowout loss to Indiana, 63-10. And, they've looked good at times. They got the big win over USC. It was probably their highlight of the season. But, man, if they don't win that game, they're at risk of being like 6-6 this year. They lose to Wisconsin this week, which is, my loser of the week would put them on this list. But really all year, I think it's been a little bit underwhelming for them. They had that big chance against Washington. I remember a month ago, I was all in on them. We saw how that ended. Not good. So they close it out. They're at home against Northwestern. Season's pretty much over. The winner or loser might decide who goes to, Detroit versus, Florida for a bowl game. But nonetheless, got to be disappointed a little bit if you're Illinois for all the hype. Not a bad team by any means, but the expectation was too high. You're at risk of going 7-4 or 7-5 on the year. If you win, you go 8-4. Not a bad year, but for how bad Wisconsin's been to go on the road and just not show up, got to be disappointing. Loser of the week, Illinois.
Yeah, I think this is I was going to say just Illinois' ranking before the season, like you mentioned. This might be to never believe preseason rankings ever again going forward in college football. Yep. It'd be really fun. Maybe we could do that in the last episode to look at the preseason rankings and see where all these teams finished out because, oh my God, some of these teams just really fell off. And yeah, like we said, a lot of people were really hyping up Illinois before the season. Don't fall for the hype sometimes. I know they had the number 9, 12, whatever they had before the year, but this is why we play the games and figure it out. But yeah, do not believe preseason rankings maybe ever going forward.
I might skip that podcast, Paisley. I don't think we need to be talking.
Why is that case? Why?
I don't think we need to be talking about preseason rankings. All right, closing out. That's it. Winners and losers. We'll be back later in the week to do our entire rivalry week breakdown, and then we'll be back, I guess, leading up to the conference champions, and then of course bowl game playoffs. We'll have all that coming out. So tune in on X. We got our picks every Friday, and yes, we will be back later in the week.